Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Dr. Shelby for Kelly's husband who doesn't know me. My name is Dr. Shelby. Nice to meet you as well. So if you've ever heard anybody talking, sleep is extremely important. I find sleep extremely important. It's one of the #1 things that I like to talk to patients about because when we sleep, it's like our body's way of recharging itself, right? So it's not only helping itself heal, but it's able to help our brain functions, our bodies function, and it's the best way for us to actually restore homeostasis within ourselves there. So today I'm going to be talking to you about not only sleep, but 3 ways we can sleep better, and I got you a couple other ways as well. So you have a lot of tools in your tool belt because a lot of us don't sleep very well with our lives being high stress. Screens are not helpful for that. So there's a lot of different things that start to inhibit our sleep. So here's some options for you to sleep better. So kind of starting off, how does sleep work? Oh, hey, what's up? I'll give this to you. You can go ahead and have a seat. So how does sleep work, right? So I want to start breaking down sleep before we talk about how we can sleep better. So there are 2 phases of sleep. So there's non-REM sleep and then there is REM sleep. So 2 phases of sleep there. And then within our non-REM sleep, we have anywhere from about 3 to 4 stages depending on who you talk to. So non-REM sleep, there are 3 stages, like I said. There's a transition between being awake and starting to fall asleep. Then stage 2, that means you are officially asleep. And then stage 3 means you're in like deep or slow wave sleep. So this is where we will spend a lot of our time like earlier in the night. So with our REM and non-REM sleep, it's a cycle between the 2 of them, and it starts over about every 80 to 100 minutes, so anywhere from 4 to 6 times a night, okay? And so within our non-REM sleep there, we spend more time in that stage 3, so that deep, really slow wave sleep, earlier on into the night. So our REM sleep is when our eyes start to twitch and our brain is more active. So within that REM stage of sleep, we're closer to being awake than we are in non-REM. So I'm gonna pull up a chart here real quick so you guys can kind of see a visual of that. So we have being awake at the top part here, and then we have our REM sleep, right? So REM is very close to being awake. That's when our eyes are moving, or rapid eye movement is what REM stands for. I should kind of clarify that for you guys. And then we have non-REM stage sleep. Like I said, depending on who you talk to, it can be anywhere from 3 to 4 stages here. So we have more of like light sleeping and then deep sleeping between all of those. So within REM sleep, it shows similar amounts of brain activity as when we are awake. Dreaming often happens when we are in this REM stage of sleeping. You usually have more REM sleep later in the night, but you don't have as much REM sleep when you sleep in colder temperatures, which is really interesting because while we are in that REM stage of sleeping, our body can't really regulate temperatures properly during this phase. When we fall asleep, we enter non-REM sleep. This is when our body's parasympathetic nervous system activates and it controls our body much more. So our blood pressure and our heart rate fall, so our heart doesn't work as hard when we are awake. So if you think about it, both of these stages or phases of sleep are extremely important for us, but ideally we really want to be in this non-REM stage of sleep as much as possible, as long as possible, because that's when a lot of the healing takes place and our brain isn't as active, our body can actually regulate itself a little bit more. As we age, our sleep patterns do change. I don't know about you guys, but I don't sleep as much as when I was a baby, unfortunately, as much as I would love to sleep a little bit more. So our slow wave sleep, so again, this deep sleep, peaks in early childhood and it drops drastically during our teenage years. And then it steadily decreases as we age into adulthood. Much older people don't experience that deep sleep pretty much at all. So you'll notice as you get older, you'll fall asleep a little bit sooner in the night and you'll wake up earlier in the morning, but your sleep won't be as restful. Have you ever done that before where you're like, 9 hours of sleep, but I felt like I slept maybe 2 minutes, right? Because we're not getting that restful sleep there. So why is sleep so important? So like I said, sleep is vital for healthy brain function as well as maintaining our physical health. So our hormones and our metabolism are affected by the way we sleep and we wake. So if our sleep cycle is thrown off, different hormones and organs may function at improper times, which can lead to increases in cortisol and food consumptions of fatty, sweet, and salty foods. So like I said, inadequate sleep can lead to coronary heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, stroke, or decrease in insulin response. So overall, our body's not functioning as well as it could, especially if we're just staying either in that REM sleep or not getting into that non-REM deep sleep there. Overall, too, we have higher cortisol levels. So if you've ever heard of cortisol, that's made primarily by your adrenal glands. They sit on top of your kidneys, and that's the stress hormone. Right? Have you ever heard of that before? Your stress hormone is cortisol. It really sends us into a sympathetic state of response, so that fight or flight, rather than the rest and digest parasympathetic response that we want to be in. It also increases our leptin and ghrelin levels. Those are our hunger cues. Again, especially for those fatty, salty, sweet foods that aren't always so good for us. And then we also have worse immune responses when we're not getting into that deep sleep as well, because our body's not able to actually essentially reset our immune system through sleeping. Any questions so far? Wonderful. So our sleep cycle, has anybody heard of your circadian rhythm or your circadian clock, right? So the nice thing about the circadian clock and rhythm, it's pretty similar for most people, but it varies person to person. So for some people, you might say like, oh, I'm more of a night owl, right? So you'll stay up later into the night, but you'll also wake up later in the morning. My husband is a night owl. He likes to stay up until usually midnight, 1 a.m. But he also doesn't wake up until like 10 a.m. in the morning, which is really nice for somebody who works from home. I'm the complete opposite. I am much more of an early bird. I will wake up 6 a.m. I've been trying to wake up earlier to go to the gym, but I'm usually in bed pretty early at night too, because my body is ready to go into that circadian rhythm there. So our central circadian clock is located in our brain, and it tells us when it is time to sleep. So there are other circadian clocks are in our organs throughout our body, but those internal clocks are in sync with certain cues such as the environment, so light and dark, right? So you've had those people who, whether they live in Alaska where they have like maybe 2 days of sunshine or those 2 full days of sunshine, that can really start to affect their circadian rhythm and their circadian clock there. And then other cues can help determine when we feel awake and when we feel drowsy. Artificial light and caffeine can really disrupt this process of trying to stay awake or trying to fall asleep there. So homeostasis keeps our body from not sleeping, right? So basically our body recognizes the signal of like, hey, things are starting to go haywire, we need to sleep, we need to recharge, we need to reset. This is in part due to adenosine. Adenosine is a hormone made from our body, and it rises when we stay awake for long periods of time. So I don't know about you guys, but if I'm awake for longer than, 24 hours, your eyelids start to get really droopy. Your body starts to feel like it just needs to lay down and fall asleep. That's in part due to that adenosine rising. And then, like I said, that light-dark cycle, which can affect melatonin. I'm sure you guys have all heard of the term melatonin or the chemical hormone melatonin. It increases in the evening, peaks early in the morning, and then starts to go onto a decline before our cortisol kind of wakes us up in the morning as well there. So that's really affected by the amount of light and dark that we get during the day. Awesome. Oh, yes. So the rhythm and timing of our body's clock also declines with age. So again, you can notice that as you get older, our neurons and our cells in the brain that promote sleep are lost, and it's a normal part of aging. So like certain conditions such as Alzheimer's disease can also speed up the loss of these neurons. So it makes it harder for older adults to stay asleep at night. And then other factors such as less physical activity, less time spent outdoors, can also affect our circadian rhythm. Awesome. Any questions so far? Perfect. So again, just kind of give you a little visual of circadian rhythm. Now this is not for everybody, this is just kind of general, but it differs person to person. It's still very similar though. So these are just some average sleep times. So if you've ever thought like, well, how much sleep am I supposed to get? I know there's a common misconception that the older you get, the less time you need to sleep, which is in part kind of true, right? So your newborn, you need about 14 to 17 hours of sleep. So nobody here is newborn, but on average, that's what a newborn needs. On average, infants 12 to 16. Again, as we get older, we do need a little bit less sleep, but on average, it's anywhere from 7 to 10 hours that we need of sleep per night in order for our body to rest and recharge. And again, that differs person to person, but that's what we're looking at there. How many of you guys get about the recommended amount of sleep?
Good sleep or bad sleep?
Exactly, that's also it too, right? So again, you can sleep for, I've had those nights where I've slept for, 8 hours and I wake up and I'm like, I'm more tired now than when I went to bed, right? Because I didn't get that restful sleep. That's a great question. So how can we sleep better, right? So the question that everybody's asking. So sticking to a sleep schedule. So I know this is easier said than done, but again, I know for myself, my body's ready to go to bed around 10:30 at night. Now some nights I like to push it, which is not always good for me in the morning, but sticking to a sleep schedule is really good for that. So you can always start with a sleep journal or sleep diary. So noting like, okay, when I'm falling asleep at this time, or I'm like laying down at this time at night. When you wake up, you write what time you woke up, and then that can help you really also tap into like, okay, do I feel more or less rested than I did the night before? Did I change my times? What changed before I fell asleep? And this is also with a light-dark cycle, so making sure that we get an adequate amount of light during the day, so getting out, getting some sunshine. Vitamin D is also really good for helping us sleep as well, because that helps us create cholesterol and things that promote movement throughout the systems of our body there. But then also making sure that, I know this is a pretty common thing to hear, that we're turning off devices about 2 hours before we're going to bed, right? So I don't know about you guys, but I am connected to my phone, and there's a lot of times that I will be sitting on my phone trying to fall asleep in bed. I'm like, why am I not tired yet? Well, my brain still thinks that it's light outside because I'm staring at my phone. So blue light is not very good for that. Bringing the temperature down in our house. So like I said, that will limit the amount of REM sleep you're getting. So that kind of not really restful sleep, but that dreaming state of sleep. And it'll promote more of the non-REM sleep. So sleeping much deeper and getting more restful sleep. So anywhere from 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is recommended for most people. Depends person to person, but that's when we're starting to really get to that point where we can get more non-REM sleep with that. And then winding down a little bit more. So I did give you guys all some sheets there to help with that, but finding different ways to really get more into that parasympathetic state of mind there. So again, I don't know about you, so there's two different ways that we can function. So there's sympathetic, which often all of us are in, which is that fight or flight response, high stress response. But when you're in that response, you're not thinking about sleeping, right? Your body is ready to run away from a bear or fight it, right? Either way. Now when we get more into that parasympathetic, that's that rest and digest. It's literally in the name, rest. So finding different ways to calm down our nervous system, calm down our stress is really helpful with that. So I gave you two options. So there's some deep breathing exercises. If you're a patient here, it's going to sound very similar as you're looking through it. So it's breathing from your belly rather than your chest. And that can help activate relaxation and lower our heart rate, our blood pressure, and our stress levels so we can start drifting off to sleep. So again, if you've been a patient, it's basically just putting a hand on your stomach, hand on your chest, taking a big deep belly breath in and making sure that your chest isn't moving as much as your belly. You'll be counting breaths, really inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth to get our body into that parasympathetic response. And then I also gave you an option of a body scan. So I really like body scans. This really helps me focus on my own personal body. So you're focusing your attention to identifying different parts of your body as you're laying down. So you start by closing your eyes, and you can start whether it's from the toes up or from the head down. But I really like starting from the toes up, so I'll start to kind of like wiggle my toes, and then you can start moving your ankles, moving your feet a little bit more. Think about just kind of like squeezing different muscles, taking big breaths into different areas. And that's basically you focusing on different areas, and it also helps your body's response to notifying your brain of any areas that you need extra work on, again, as our body's trying to recharge through the night. So yeah, some different things here. Also, to help with our sleep-wake cycle, avoiding caffeine. Exercise is really good for that. About 20 minutes of exercise a day. It can be just going for a walk. It can be intense exercise. It doesn't matter, just as long as we're getting our body moving and getting those muscles moving as well. Why is that? There it is. Awesome. And then some other things to help us sleep better, like I said, exercise for at least 20 minutes a day. Looking at your diet, so sugary foods, refined carbs, those can trigger a wakefulness response in our body. So again, limiting those throughout the day, but especially before we're going to bed. We don't want to be having, lots of like ice cream and cookies and cake before we go to bed, as much as they sound delicious. Caffeine, I know, is a big one for people. So if you're going to, or you need a cup of coffee at 4 p.m., usually opting for decaf is better for you. And nicotine, too, can also send our body into a fight or flight response and stressing ourselves out. We also want to avoid big meals at night, just because as we get fuller, oftentimes those big meals are full of refined carbs, but those big meals can cause us to want to fall asleep right after we eat, rather than waiting for a few hours to actually go to bed at our normal time. I do always talk about, though, too, you don't want to go to bed on an empty stomach, because that also sends your body into a stress response. So I've had lots of people say, well, I always need a snack before I go to bed, or I need a midnight snack because my stomach is starting to rumble. So finding something that is full of whole grains, fiber, and protein is really good for that, because it makes you feel full without completely filling up your stomach there. So a couple options I have for you is like half a turkey sandwich, a small bowl of whole grain, low sugar cereals, milk or yogurt, some fruit, a banana. I personally like doing like cottage cheese and a few berries on top. That's my like little sweet treat, but also getting me ready for bed. And then you can also use supplementation. So I know most people will often use melatonin as supplementation. I have found a few articles that have found that magnesium glycinate is also really good for that. Magnesium can help us regulate our blood sugar, our blood pressure, and our protein productions. And it can be beneficial for most, but just as an aside, anybody with kidney issues should not be supplementing with magnesium just because your kidneys can't filter it out, as if you had healthy kidneys. Any questions? I feel like I talked really fast, and I do apologize. That's kind of how I talk. But yeah, so these are some options to help you guys sleep better. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask. Like I said, sleep is extremely important to myself personally, but also to making sure our patients sleep, because as your body's trying to heal itself, especially through the process of chiropractic and all the spinal rehabilitation we do here, sleep is extremely important for your body to get accustomed to those new movements and rest and recharge areas that it needs to take care of. That's all I have for you guys today, so thank you all for coming.
Thank you.